Off with a statement on the outcomes of the meetings of experts on the Black Sea. The Secretary-General welcomes the discussions and reported commitments reached in Saudi Arabia by the United States, the Russian Federation, and Ukraine. Reaching an agreement on freedom of navigation in the Black Sea to ensure the protection of civilian vessels and port infrastructure will be a crucial contribution to the global food security and supply chains, reflecting the importance of trade routes from both Ukraine and the Russian Federation to global markets. The United Nations has been working consistently, especially following the letters the Secretary-General sent to Presidents Zelenskyy, Putin, and Erdogan on February 7th of 2024, putting forward a proposal for the safe and free navigation in the Black Sea. The United Nations also remains closely engaged in the continued implementation of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Russian Federation on facilitating access of Russian food and fertilizer to global markets to address global food security. The Secretary-General's good offices remain available to support all efforts towards peace. The Secretary-General reiterates his hope that such efforts will pave the way for a durable ceasefire and contribute to achieving a just, comprehensive, and lasting peace in Ukraine in line with the UN Charter, international law, and relevant UN resolutions, in full respect for Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. And that statement is now being shared with you electronically. Further on Ukraine, our Assistant Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, Joyce Masuya, briefed Security Council members on the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, and she said that since March 1st, not a day has passed without an attack harming civilians in that country. She said, "We are particularly appalled by the strikes countrywide on March 7th that killed 21 civilians and injured many more, including making it one of the deadliest days this year." Across Ukraine, Ms. Masuya said, almost 13 million people need humanitarian assistance. More than 10 million Ukrainians have been forced to flee their homes, including 3.7 million of them who are displaced internally. The displacement is disproportionately affecting women and girls, heightening their exposure to gender-based violence and hindering their access to support services, she told the members of the Security Council. She added that recent funding cuts have led to a reprioritization of Ukraine response efforts that will be announced in the coming weeks. Continued financial support will be essential to maintain our operations there. And further on Ukraine from the ground, our colleagues in Ukraine tell us that today an interagency convoy delivered vital aid to one of the most affected communities in the Donetsk region. This is the fourth convoy to frontline communities in the region this year. Humanitarians brought in 6 metric tons of medical hygiene and other critical supplies, including those for older people, to help some 1,500 residents remaining in the communities of Konstantinivka. Local residents there face daily shelling. Homes and critical civilian infrastructure have been damaged, and electricity, water, and the gas supply have also been disrupted. Also today, the Secretary-General this morning addressed the informal meeting of the General Assembly on the implementation of the Pact for the future. He reiterated that the adoption of the Pact last September was the beginning of the process and not an end. Today, the Secretary-General shared an update on the work done in the past 6 months, but as you can imagine, he highlighted the work ahead, focusing on 4 key areas: peace and security, finance for development, youth and future generations, as well as technology. We face a long list of challenges, Mr. Guterres told member states: geopolitical divisions, mistrust that are blocking effective action, with some actively questioning the value of international cooperation and multilateral system itself. But he added that it is exactly because of the divides and the mistrust that the Pact for the Future and the 2 parallel documents are more important now than ever. His full remarks were shared with you. And also, much earlier this morning, the Secretary-General spoke virtually to the high-level segment of the 16th Petersburg Climate Dialogue, which is taking place in Germany. He said that renewables are powering growth, creating jobs, lowering energy bills, and cleaning out our air. Every day, he said, every day they become even smarter. Investment, he added. The Secretary-General also underscored that to meet the long-term 1.5 degrees Celsius limit, leadership is needed, and he noted the new National Climate Plans, or NDCs, are due by September, are a unique opportunity for member states to deliver and for them to lay a coherent vision for a just and green transition. His full remarks are upstairs, and they're not upstairs. Well, they're upstairs somewhere, yeah. And on the same topic, the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, today released new figures showing that renewables accounted for over 90% of total power expansion globally in 2024. As in previous years, most of the increase occurred in Asia, with the greatest share being contributed by China. Commenting on these figures, the Secretary-General said that renewable energy is powering down the fossil fuel age, record-breaking growth is creating jobs, lowering energy bills, and cleaning our air. But the shift to clean energy must be faster, and it must be fair, with all countries given the chance to fully benefit from cheap, clean, and renewable energy. IRENA also said that although 2024 marks yet another benchmark in renewable energy capacity and growth, progress still falls far short of the 11.2 terawatts needed to align with the global goal to triple installed renewable energy capacity by 2030. To reach this goal, renewables capacity must now expand by 16.6% annually until 2030. And turning to Gaza, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs is underscoring the severity of the situation unfolding there. Relentless bombardments and daily displacement orders, coupled with the ongoing blockade on cargo entering Gaza and systematic denials of humanitarian movements inside the Strip, are having a devastating impact on the entire population of more than 2 million people. OCHA warns that everything in Gaza is running out: supplies, time, and life. The space for families to survive is shrinking as the new Israeli displacement orders are issued by the day. Just a few hours, another order was issued for neighborhoods in Gaza City following reported rocket fire by Palestinian armed groups. These orders now cover 17% of Gaza, roughly 61 square kilometers. In just 1 week, 142,000 people have been displaced, and that number is now expected to rise. OCHA says that with every wave of displacement, thousands of people lose not just their shelter, but also access to essentials such as food, drinking water, and health care. And as a reminder that these latest directives follow repeated displacement orders between the 7th of October 2023 and January 2025, during which 90% of Gaza's population was displaced at least once. OCHA notes that Israeli cargo closures imposed on all crossings into Gaza is now in its 4th week. Our humanitarian partners are warning that as a result, medical stocks, cooking gas, and fuel needed to power bakeries and ambulances are running dangerously low. Prices are skyrocketing, and humanitarian provisions are now being rationed. The UN Population Fund says incubators, ultrasound devices, and oxygen pumps, all vital for newborns with complications, remain stuck at the border. OCHA also reports that Israeli forces have expanded the areas within Gaza where they're requiring humanitarian organizations to coordinate their movements with them in advance, routinely denying such requests. Between the 18th and the 24th of March, 40 out of nearly 50% coordinated aid movements were denied. That's 82%. And today, half of our coordinated missions were denied. That's 5 out of 10. OCHA warns that when humanitarian access is denied, tasks as critical as picking up essential supplies or refueling bakeries are effectively blocked. And turning to Sudan, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, expressed today his shock by reports that hundreds of civilians were killed and scores injured in airstrikes by the Sudanese armed forces on a busy market in Tor village in North Darfur. That report took place on the 24th of March. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us there are disturbing reports that some of the injured are dying due to lack of access to timely medical care in Al-Fashir, where ongoing siege and hostilities have forced most of the health facilities to just shut down. Ms. Clementine Nkwete Salami, our resident and humanitarian coordinator in Sudan, said that Monday's horrific attack on the Torah market is yet another stark reminder of the growing disregard for human life, international humanitarian law during this conflict. She unequivocally condemned all deliberate and indiscriminate attacks on civilians. Markets, hospitals, schools, and mosques and private homes are not battlegrounds, she stressed, yet civilians are being killed in the very places where they should feel the safest. Once again, we call on the protection of civilians and safe passage for all those fleeing areas of active conflict. Humanitarian access must also be ensured to all people in need across North Darfur and beyond get what they need. I've also been asked repeatedly about our presence there, and I can tell you that given the extremely volatile security situation in parts of North Darfur state, we do not currently have any direct operational presence in Tora or El Fasher. And heading south to South Sudan, where we've been updating you about the worsening situation in that country, our peacekeeping mission there has renewed its calls for an immediate cessation of hostilities and an urgent dialogue between the parties to de-escalate the tension and restore calm. In the past 24 hours, clashes have reportedly taken place between the South Sudan People's Defense Forces and the Sudan People's Liberation Army in opposition, and those have been taking place in the south and west of the capital city, Juba. The head of the mission, Nicholas Haysom, is urging country's leaders to prevent a relapse into widespread violence by recommitting to the revitalized peace agreement, including strictly adhering to the ceasefire, resolving grievances through dialogue, and reconvening a truly unified government. And in the DRC, our peacekeeping colleagues there tell us that attacks in Ituri by armed groups have recently increased, targeting civilian near sites that are set up for displaced people who are themselves displaced because of fighting. And those sites are on farmland around mining areas concentrated in Jugu and Mahagi territories. In this context, peacekeepers have facilitated government-led consultations with several armed groups, including Codeco and the Zaire groups, directly leading to the surrender of 171 members of the Zaire armed group. Meanwhile, peacekeepers continue to maintain a presence in hotspots, regularly patrol main supply routes, providing direct protection for more than 100,000 displaced civilians. And just 2 days ago, on March 24th, peacekeepers repelled an attack by the Codeco armed group against the Lodha site for displaced people, working in cooperation with Congolese army patrols. In parallel, in the first 2 months of this year, 4 police units in Bunia conducted 310 patrols to support protection activities inside camps for internally displaced people. And turning to Haiti, our humanitarian colleagues warned that escalating attacks on populated areas have forced repeated and record-level displacement in the Port-au-Prince metropolitan area. OCHA warns that the scale and pace of displacement is rapidly outpacing the capacity of humanitarian actors to respond. Nearly 23,000 people were displaced in just a week mid-March. That's what the International Organization for Migration is telling us. Families seeking shelter in already severely overcrowded sites with minimal essential services such as water, sanitation, and health care, and protection were among those among those displaced. Meanwhile, OCHA also tells us that cholera continues to pose a serious public health risk, particularly in displacement sites. The Public Ministry of Health in Haiti, UNICEF, and our partners are jointly intensifying cholera prevention efforts, such as distributing cholera kits, promoting hygiene activities, and strengthening water and sanitation hygiene services to contain the spread of the disease. Food security remains alarming. Beyond the worrying situation in the capital, almost half of the entire population of Haiti, that's about 5.5 million human beings, are going hungry, one of the highest proportions in any crisis around the world. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization is working with Haitian authorities to restore access to food by providing farmers with seeds and tools to promote household levels food of security. And today marks the 50th anniversary of the entry into force of the Biological Weapons Convention. In a message to mark the anniversary, the Secretary-General said the convention has contributed to collective efforts to reject the use of disease as a weapon. The Biological Weapons Convention now has 188 states parties. The Secretary-General called on 9 governments that have yet to join the convention to do so without delay, so the world can stand united against biological weapons. And just a clarification, at yesterday's briefing, in answer to a question from Stéphane, who I don't see here, I had indicated that the UN Secretariat had adopted the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. I just want to clarify that the UN Secretariat has not adopted the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. As recently stated in the report published a few months ago by Mr. Moratinos' office, the UN Action Plan to Enhance Monitoring and Response to Anti-Semitism, the Secretariat does not endorse any specific definition. However, the Secretary-General, as you know, has clearly, repeatedly, and forcefully spoken out against all forms of anti-Semitism and will continue to do so. 2 member states have paid up. You ready? The first of these countries underwent a name change following the adoption of the PRESPA agreement. I'm sorry? What's the name? What? North Macedonia. Exactly, Deji. That was in February 2019. And the first perfect 10 in Olympics gymnastics went to a national of this country. Romania. Yes, and that was? And where were the Olympics? Los Angeles. Canada, Montreal. Anyway, we thank our friends in Skopje and in Bucharest. Oh, buff, as we would say. We thank our friends in Skopje and Bucharest. We now have 83 fully paid up member states. Deji, you yield to Edie. I mean, you won the second question. Yeah.
Thank you, Steph. You said in reading the Secretary General's comments on Ukraine that the United Nations is remaining engaged. Does that mean that the UN is going to be participating in the monitoring of this mission?
No, I think we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We've been in touch with parties on this, and as soon as I have more to share with you, I will do so.
And on Rebecca Greenspan's travels, she was in Turkey.
Yep.
Is she going to the United States?
As soon as I have confirmation of her next stop, I will also share that with you. Michelle, then Deji, sorry. Once you yield, I forget you, Deji, yeah.
Thanks, Steph. When you say you've been in touch with the parties on this, who, when?
Well, I mean, she has been, Ms. Greenspan has been for quite some time having regular meetings with Russian officials, U.S. officials, Ukrainian officials. I don't have an exact list of all the meetings that she's had, but she's also been used as a resource by some of the people who've been participating in the talks, given all the work that we've done on the issues of freedom of navigation.
By the United States?
I will leave it at that.
So did they reach out to her? Like, was she and the UN aware that the US was working on this announcement for yesterday?
I don't think we had any specific insights.
So the UN views this announcement by the US yesterday as building on the work of the UN. It's essentially trying to revive.
Look, I think we're not
deal.
In a. It's not here about getting credit or what was built on what. we've done a lot of work on freedom of navigation of the Black Sea, have continued to work on it at times where, people thought it was hopeless. So obviously, Ms. Greenspan and her team have a lot of know-how and knowledge, and they're sharing that. What is important that things get actually achieved. Deji.
Yes, first a clarification. We know that for the past 3 weeks, there's no humanitarian aid entering Gaza.
That's
but
correct.
When you just read that also inside Gaza, there are still coordinations between Israeli authority with the UN humanitarian organizations. Is that correct? Even though the denial number is getting higher and higher.
Yes, that's what I've been saying.
So has Israeli authority ever told you why, in such a circumstances, like you have you have less and less humanitarian storage inside Gaza, they are continuing denying operations?
I think those are questions you need to ask them.
I haven't finished yet.
Sorry,
Linda. It's also been reported by Financial Times that Israeli army is planning to reoccupy what they call reoccupy Gaza, and also to fully in charge of the humanitarian delivery, just in case those humanitarian aids would be going to Hamas. So they want to take charge of that. What would then, if that become true, where would be the position of the UN in Gaza?
It's a lot of hypotheticals. I can tell you.
Yeah, but first, what's the position for
what I
this
can
plan?
tell you is that we don't want to go backwards, right? There was a ceasefire that was enacted. Hostages were released, right? Families were united. Prisoners were released on the Israeli side, Palestinian prisoners. Humanitarian aid flooded in, and you saw the immediate benefits to civilians, right, of the ceasefire. That's what we want to go to. We do not want to go back to scenes of open conflict.
What's the difference if the Israeli army delivered the humanitarian aids to Gazans?
I think the UN system has proven its effectiveness and reliability in delivering humanitarian aid. Linda, then Benny. So, okay, I'll get...
Thank you, Steph. Just going back to your statement.
2 seconds, Benny. Go ahead, yeah.
Just going back to your statement about the SG. About the Black Sea Initiative. You say that the SG had put forward a proposal last February, so that's 13 months ago, for safe and free navigation of the Black Sea. Can you just refresh us what that was?
Well, that
is
was...
it still, no, but was that also given...
this was something
here?
that was shared with the Russians, shared with the Ukrainians, shared with the Turks, and that's what it was about. It was a concept about freedom of navigation. So we are welcoming and pleased that we're seeing movements towards that goal. Benny.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I need to go. That's why
I need to go too. Go ahead.
I'm not even sure if you can answer this question, but you have a lot of, the UN has quite a few people in Gaza, right?
Yeah.
There are growing reports about protest inside Gaza against Hamas. Can you shed any light on that?
I've seen those reports. I don't have any firsthand information, and whether people are in Gaza or anywhere else in the world, they need to be able to demonstrate, and that is their basic right. But I'll see if I can get any more information. Bisan, sorry.
Thank you. Just the past hour, the head of the Sudanese Transitional Sovereign Council announced that the Sudanese army has retaken Khartoum and it's now liberated from the RSF, according to his words. So I don't know if you have any statement on that, and how does the SG actually view this development overall?
I don't have any confirmation. I haven't received any update on this. What we want to see is a return to a political engagement in Sudan in terms of governments. We want to see a halt to the atrocities that we have been seen committed by all sides in this conflict. I mean, we talked about it today, the shelling of markets. There have been atrocities committed by the RSF. We need the political leaders in Sudan to put the interest of their people first and foremost. I mean, we've seen the utter and horrific destruction and suffering of the Sudanese people since the start of this civil war. Yes, please.
Thank you. UN staff who have been stopped.
I have not. And just to clarify, because I think I clarified it yesterday, this was an email sent by one department.
In case they are stopped by authorities, have you received any reports of any UN staff who have been stopped?
I have not. And just to clarify, because I think I clarified it yesterday, this was an email sent by one department following concern raised by staff. I mean, frankly, it's not a bad idea for anyone to have, if you don't have an ID or if you're not a citizen of country, to have a photo of your visa, at least on your minimum on your phone.
So you haven't heard about any incidents?
No, I have not. No.
And then secondly, about the UN staff in Gaza, obviously you said that number has come down. Have you guys maintained the same levels, or has more people been removed?
No, there's been no more, and this is, let's be focused. We're talking about reducing the footprint of the international staff, which is about 100. There's the latest count that I have in my head, about 13,000 national staff, right? So, and those are Palestinians, those are Gazans who are not only continuing to put their life at risk to deliver humanitarian aid to other Palestinians, but also have to deal with how to keep their own families safe. So it is a reduction in the footprint of international staff. It is basically inconsequential when you look at the total number of staff. Let's go to people who haven't asked questions. Yes, Gabriel, and then.
Thanks, Steph. Just one on Haiti. As the situation there is obviously very precarious, is there any sort of red line that you guys are looking at if it comes to having to pull out any more staff out of Haiti if the security situation gets worse?
I wouldn't want to say there's a red line. The situation is assessed every day. Decisions are made every day. I mean, you saw there was, at some point when there were issues with the airport, we moved people to other parts of Haiti. So it's really a flexible footprint, if I can use that term, and people are shifted to the best places where they can deliver aid and deliver aid safely.
And how would the SG characterize the work that the multinational security support mission has done so far?
Look, the multinational support mission is doing the best possible job they can, given frankly the deficit in support they are getting from the international community. I mean, whether it's the Kenyans and other nationals who have sent people there to put their lives at risk. And we know already there's already been a member of the Kenyan police force who's paid the ultimate price. But that force needs more money, right? They need more equipment, and Haitian political leaders need to also recommit to a political track. Dennis, and then Madame Jessica.
Today, another Russian journalist, correspondent of First Channel, died after Ukrainian strike. So there are 5 Russian journalists this week that were killed. So your reaction first, and then will the UN investigate, or any of UN bodies will investigate restraints?
First of all, we send our condolences to the family and the colleagues of the journalists. Again, we have seen journalists pay the ultimate price in this conflict as they have in others. It is imperative that journalists be allowed to do their work without fear of ever being targeted or harassed. As for an investigation, I do not believe we have any, unless we are invited to do so with a proper mandate, we don't have the investigatory mandate to do that. Madame Le Mazurier, and then we'll go.
Thanks, Steph. Just a bit more clarification on Ukraine. What are the exact differences between the SG's Black Sea proposal and the deal that's been announced? And to what extent will the SG, or has the SG been involved in any negotiations? How will he continue, or the UN continue to be involved in any ceasefire negotiations?
We will. I think we need to see more details of what was the specifics of what was agreed to in Riyadh. But the goal of both remain the same, which is freedom of navigation on the Black Sea for commercial ships to ensure that commercial infrastructure, port infrastructure, is safe. The Secretary-General personally has not been involved in any negotiations. As I said, Rebecca Greenspan has been available to people involved in those talks to share information on the work that she and her team have done.
At this point, we can't report that the UN is in any way officially involved in negotiations, or will be, or are there moves towards that?
We can only report on what we know, right? So I don't think you can say, you cannot report saying the UN is involved in the negotiations. Yes, please.
So in your briefings that you just mentioned that the renewable energy accounts for 90% of global power growth last year. Mm-hmm. And as we also know that the US this year has published a lot of policies to cut funding for renewable energy programs and has expressed opposing to wind farms. So what's UN's position in these policies?
Well, I mean, our position has remained consistent, and the Secretary-General has been extremely clear about the need to continue to invest in renewables, that the price of renewables is falling every day, and it continues to be the best method to power our future, especially if we are to reach the 1.5 degree Celsius limit. Before we start round two, do we have any questions online? Yes, Abdelhamid. Yes, Abdelhamid. Yes, Abdelhamid.
Hamdan Bilal, the co-director of the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land, has been beaten by the settlers, and when the ambulance took him, he was kidnapped by the Israeli army. Are you aware of this development, and what do you say to that incident?
We're aware of this concerning development, and I did note, if I'm not mistaken, that he was released. We've also been, I think, very vocal on denouncing the violence by settlers, Israeli settlers in the West Bank. Michelle.
Thank you, Steph. The United States is planning to end its financial support for Gavi, the vaccine alliance. Do you have any reaction to that?
We've seen the press reports. We think that we've been a tremendous supporter of Gavi. Gavi has been, I think, an amazing symbol of multilateral cooperation, of public-private cooperation in the fight against diseases that know no borders. And that while they may break out in one part of the world, can quickly infect other parts of the world. Deji, we encourage everyone to give and give generously.
Steph, after 2 days of closure of the 42nd Street entrance, it reopens today, which is good for us. But can you explain a little bit why? Because it feels like the reversal of policy reminded me of someone else.
I can't explain why.
They just reopened.
I'm just happy it's reopened.
You're
just
also
enjoy,
happy.
Just enjoy the gifts that are given to you and don't question them. Have a good day.